Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nick Files. I'm your host, Nick Mulay. For starters, I just got to say it's definitely great to be back after when I wasn't able to do it last week. So I'm definitely glad we got the show back up. Today is going to be it's going to be a really interesting episode today because this is actually a location. I said this on the previous show that I was on just last night that I am super excited about. It is actually by request from an investigator, a very good investigator fan of ours out in Virginia. And before we get to what the location is called, I just want to say hello to everybody in the chat very quickly. What's up, Nigel? Good to see you. Hello, Irene. Good to see you as well. There she is, Lauren. Great to have. I'm glad she's here from the very start. So to give the location I'm going to be talking about today is a place that I'm sure some of you guys have probably heard. Well, obviously I know Lauren has, but I'm sure some of you guys may have heard about this place. Some of you may have not, but it's probably one of the oldest remaining. Hang on one second here, guys. These damn notifications keep coming up. Okay, sorry about that. It is probably undoubtedly one of the oldest locations I'm ever presenting because never really done research or really presented a location like this other than maybe just some of the first episodes of the show where I've done some of those out in Europe. So we'll be talking about a location called the Peyton Randolph House. Again, I'm super excited about it. And I got to say, for when Lauren had told me about this place, because she had actually just recently investigated it, the history and also the paranormal activity that follows is just absolutely crazy there. I've never, I don't know what it is about. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but I just connection got lost briefly, but I'm back. Just before we get started, I just want to say hello to everyone else who's just coming in. Hello, Lucy. Great to see you. Uh, Great to have you here, Nigel. Hello, Natalie. What's going on, Mick? Thank you, Irene. Really appreciate it. Hey, Carrie. Great to see you. It's been a long time since I've seen you here. Long time no see, that's for sure. What's going on, Brett? All right. So, without further ado, because since I did start a little bit later than usual, hang on, got one more. What's up, Lynn? Since I started a little bit later than usual, it was because I was actually making some last minute additions to the slideshow. So it would actually be a lot more interesting and would be able to, for the most part, fill up the entire hour. So now, without further ado, let's get right down to the. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to just realized I forgot to share the screen. Hang on one second here, guys. Sorry, I'm not trying to be in a rush here. All right, there we go. All right, so now without further ado, let's get right down to business. So as I just said, we're going to be talking about what's known as the Peyton Randolph House, which truly an absolutely beautiful building. But like I said, it's got quite a history. Some of it's quite dark, as a matter of fact. But we're going to go right from the beginning all the way right to where it is at today. So, and then of course, obviously, as usual, we'll get right to the paranormal stories shortly afterwards. So, how it all began. Well, actually, no, to give a little description, which by the way, this picture here, Lauren, I want to credit you for this because this is one of your pictures that you took of this location. So, thought I'd use that as kind of the opening for the special presentation. So, the Randolph House is located in near the center of colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, at the northeast corner of Nicholson and North England Streets. It is a two-story wood-frame structure appearing as a 7-bay main block with a single-story L to the east. The main block is capped by a roof that is hipped at the western end and gabled at the eastern. The main entrance is set in the center bay, sheltered by a gabled hood. Windows are arranged slightly out of symmetry, a product of the building's construction history. The building interior retains original 18th century woodwork and a marble fireplace mantel in its central section. It is of the oldest and most original houses in colonial Williamsburg. Now, the oldest portion of the house is the western half of the main block, which was built pretty much over 300 years ago, which was about 1715 by William Robertson. He built the house that eventually became the west wing of the Peyton Randolph house. Unfortunately, I was unable to find a photo of William, or a painting, if you will, of William Robertson, but I did manage to find paintings for everybody else involved, which we'll get to real soon. But it was purchased, actually just getting started, it was purchased by Sir John Randolph in 1721, who also purchased a lot to the east for, if I'm correct, 50 euro, right? I'm not really smart with all these different dollar signs other than the US one, so I'm probably butchering that incorrectly, but it's where he built a second house in 1724 there as well. Randolph's second son, Peyton, joined the two structures together by building the middle section. Although the west and center sections of the house were connected by doors on both floors, there was no opening through the brick wall to the east wing. The eastern section did not have internal access to the rest of the house and may have been used by the younger Randolph as an office or a service building, or it could have been rented out like a modern mother-in-law suite. Demolished in the 19th century, the East Wing was reconstructed by Colonial Williamsburg after the property was purchased in 1938. The western section of the house originally had a fully hipped roof, and the area between it and the middle section's gable was used as a water collection area, housing a cistern that is still found in the building's attic. He built a spacious and well-appointed two-story central section between the two houses, a hall with a large round-headed window and a grand staircase connect single rooms on each floor. The first floor parlor measures 19 feet square, and the bedchamber above has the same dimensions. Peyton Randolph later expanded the home, building an elaborate center section connecting all rooms and forming the current L shape seen today that includes three main houses. Oh, I forgot to add a fade in for that picture. The southern face of the center section matches the appearance of the 29-foot square clapboard house that makes up the west wing. The low-pitched hip roof of the west wing was extended across the addition, but ends abruptly when it reaches the high gable of the dormered roof on the east wing. The roof of the west wing was designed to funnel rain to two concealed log gutters, which apparently carried the water to a cistern. Only traces remain of this contrivance that may have leaked and was later covered by the roof. A chimney rises through the center of the wing, venting corner fireplaces in three rooms on each floor. The stairway passage is located in the southwest corner of each floor. The main center section contains some of the original, and believe it or not, best surviving paneling in the city, some of it walnut paneling, while unusually fine brass hinges and locks trim the parlor doors. The floor is also mostly made of original edge cut pine. On a tour through colonial Williamsburg, one can see the attention to detail of the home's interior and some of the older aspects of the house on the second floor, where the Randolph family slept. The Randolph's final form encompasses three structures, again forged into one by connecting walls and hallways and several outbuildings. It has, of course, as you guys probably saw in some of the, at least on the outside of it, it has red panel siding, representing its original appearance. Sir Randolph purchased the home shortly after its construction and expanded the building to its large size seen today. Peyton Randolph, now I know everyone has different opinions, especially for those who live near colonial Williamsburg. Peyton Randolph, believe it or not, is actually more or less considered to be really the real first president of the United States, as he was the president of the First and Second Continental Congresses and played an important role leading up to the American Revolution. So he probably deserved the credit. It deserved the credit as the real first president than General George Washington. In addition, he chaired the meeting during Patrick Henry's fiery "Give me." Oh, wait, I'm sorry, that was the wrong picture. He chaired the meeting during Patrick Henry's fiery "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. Negotiated the return of the gunpowder to the Colonial magazine from Governor Dunmore, and his home served as a meeting place for other revolutionary influential figures during the war, like George Wythe. Before we actually finish this up, hang on, give me 1 second here, guys. I gotta fix something because the pictures did not come out. The pictures did not come out correctly. Hold on 1 second here. Bear with me for just a moment. I always hate it when these pictures don't go exactly in order. So, all right, we're going to fix this one right here. And then, okay. All right, number 5 right here. Here we go. All righty. There we go. Now we got it. All right, now I got to go through this whole scheme again. All right, let's try this. All right, now I got to go through share screen again. You got to love all this technology. And you know what? Just before we get to the rest of these, before we continue, let me just go to the comments really quickly. No, you're probably right, Lauren. I'm just really excited about this one. Hey, Yvonne, great to see you. I'm definitely great to be back. Gary's in the house. Really appreciate it, Gary. Hello, Joe. Nice to see you. What's going on, Sam? Hello, Wayne. Wow, we got a lot of people watching. This is probably some of the most amounts of reactions I've gotten so far. Actually, this is awesome. Okay, so let's get right back to where we were because now I got everything fixed. All righty. So, oh wait, you know what? Let me just make sure because again, I forgot to do this. Check on the screen to make sure that that it's actually showing. Because see, like I said, when I do this, I can't see what's going on the screen, unfortunately. Okay, yeah, we're good. All right, so he chaired the meeting during Patrick Henry's fiery "Give me liberty or give me death" speech. Negotiated the return of the gunpowder to the Colonial magazine from Governor Dunmore, and his home served as a meeting place for other revolutionary influential figures during the war, like George Wythe. Forgot to add pictures of them, but I got them. Like I said, I got the majority of almost everybody. But what's more interesting is that perhaps the most famous of them was founding father and future third president Thomas Jefferson, who was also his cousin, believe it or not. Sir John Randolph, the only colonial born in Virginia to be knighted, was highly respected and very wealthy, but sadly died in 1737. He left the house to his wife, Susanna Beverly Randolph, until their son Peyton reached the age of 24. Their first son, Beverly, inherited property in Gloucester County. Their third son, John, inherited acreage on the city's southern edge. And their daughter, Mary, again, I forgot. Again, I was doing some last minute stuff. I forgot to add her picture, so my apologies for that. Received a dowry of 1,000, if I'm correct, again, euro, or pound, I think. I'm not smart with all these different dollar signs, like I just said. Susanna Beverly Randolph remained in the home until her death sometime after 1754. Now, unfortunately, typical of such places like this, especially during this century, death visited the house again during the smallpox epidemic of 1748. According to colonial era records, 4 of the house's 23 residents succumbed to disease. Most of the dead were likely servants and slaves, which perhaps the saddest part is, and I think we've learned a lot this throughout, early American colonial history when it involved the slaves, whether it was disease or whatever. The unfortunate part was that for the most part, they were never accounted for because, I mean, you have to remember this was one of the states that did, that really was, well, even before it became a state, it was a colony at that time. And this was one of those colonies that, in fact, I think Virginia was the first to really basically put slavery on the rise, if that makes sense. So they were obviously just seen as property, and if they died of such diseases, that was, again, they were probably never accounted for. Which is still, of course, very sad regard, especially from those days. Now, Peyton Randolph, Speaker of Virginia's House of Burgesses in the years leading to the Revolution, brought his wife Betty Harrison Randolph to the home by 1751. It became a hub of political activity, and its owner, Peyton Randolph, was elected as the preceding officer of the First Continental Congress at Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1774. An inventory taken at Peyton Randolph's death the following year in 1775 indicates how the house was furnished and equipped. Over time, the Peyton Randolph house became the scene of many tragedies. In fact, again, Lawrence, as I know you're watching, as you know, many deaths occurred in the Peyton Randolph house. For example, during the American Revolutionary War, the home served as a field hospital for wounded soldiers. Most likely, a great many soldiers drew their last breath within the walls of the home. And but as far as for Peyton himself, following Peyton's death in Philadelphia, his body was pickled in a barrel and sent back to Williamsburg. Today, he is one of few buried under William and Mary's Wren Chapel in the Wren Crypt with his father, Sir Randolph, and brother John Randolph, a Tory. The books willed to Peyton from his father were given to Thomas Jefferson, who added the large collection to his own library. These books would later become the first in founding the Library of Congress. Now, widow Betty Randolph, Betty Randolph opened her home to serve under the command of French General Jean Baptiste Donatien de Vimeur, Comte Rochambeau. Oh my God, that is a really long name for somebody. Wow, that's got to be one of the longest names I think I've ever seen on with a person. I don't even know if I even said it right. I mean, at least part of it I did. But he arrived in Williamsburg with General George Washington to prepare for the siege of Yorktown in 1781 until French and American forces moved into the field positions around Yorktown to surround General Lord Cornwallis. After Peyton's death, his wife Elizabeth Betty Harrison resided in the home until her death in 1782. Peyton and Betty Randolph had no children, and after her death, and according to directions in Betty Randolph's will, the house was sold at auction to the highest bidder, Joseph Hornsby, on February 19th, 1783. A newspaper advertisement described it as pleasantly situated on the Great Square. It was conveyed. Oh, wait. They're repeating some of that information once again. Conveyed to the highest bidder on February 20. Oh, okay, I get it now. It's well, wait a second. No, they're saying it on two different dates. It's no big deal. I'll correct it later. But either way, the proceeds were divided among Betty Randolph's legatees. I don't even know how to say that last one. Moving forward now to the 19th century, but just before we do, let me just go right back to the chat very quickly. Just want to see how things are going. This thing is What's going on here? Oh, shoot. Guys, I don't. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's see who's. Sorry, the computer froze for a brief second. I don't know how the hell that happened. What's going on, Jamie? When I'm good, I'm good. Yeah, I think I talked a little bit about that already, Lauren, if I'm correct. I know there's a lot more. That if they knew they were worth so much, it would have liked them dollars. Count by the presidents, yeah. And let's see, make sure what you tell. Oh yeah, trust me, Lauren. I'm already ahead of you. Like I said, that's going to be more on the paranormal side of things, but I trust me. I'm getting right to it. Tom, what's going on? Good to see you. Now this is interesting. So, George Washington was scared of being buried alive, thus came the safe coffin. Okay, now that's something new. I've never heard of that before. I mean, I knew about that in those days. Many people were feared of being buried alive, but I never knew that General George Washington was one of them. Let's see. Hey, what's going on, Ed? It's from his mother's father's grandfather's name. Okay. Wasn't sure what that comment was. Hey, Joe, good to see you. Oh, thanks, Ed. I really appreciate you tuning in, taking your time from work to listen in. Appreciate it. Okay, so let's get right back. Pretty much all caught up as of right now. So let's go right back. So we're talking about obviously now some of the other strings of deaths that have occurred in this house. During the 19th century, 2 children also lost their lives around the hounds. One of them was a young boy who died suddenly after falling from a tree nearby. Oddly enough, a little girl also died here after plunging from a second-story window of the house. Things were already still at a pretty rough time, even at the start of the 19th century. However, by 1824, the house was in the possession of Mary Monroe Peachy. Interestingly, she had the honor of lodging Mary Joseph Paul Yves Rock Hilbert du Motier Marquis de Lafayette. Holy cow, that's a man, these names are so damn long. I'm sorry, but that's got to be amongst some that along with the other one. That's got to be amongst some of the longest names I think I've ever came across. But anyways, it was when he visited the city on October 20th and 21st during a tour of America. Now, again, no surprise whatsoever. If this was a location that had served as a hospital for soldiers that were wounded, both American and French, during the American Revolutionary War, obviously it's no surprise that a little known fact about the Randolph House is that during the American Civil War, in the aftermath of the Battle of Williamsburg, the Peyton Randolph House, occupied by the Peachy family, was also used as a hospital to treat both wounded Union and Confederate soldiers on May 5th, 1862. Now, these photos that I'm presenting right here, actually, I mean, these are some of the oldest photos. I wasn't able to really find a date on when this photo was taken, but these are probably among the oldest photos I managed to find of the Peyton Randolph House. These were actually taken not really just for the most part a few years after it was a hospital. Sometime from what I saw on the website, they were taken about in the early 1870s. So, it was obviously a place like this that had so much tragedy with, wounded Union and Confederate soldiers. The blood probably would have still, I mean, not necessarily, no pun intended, the blood would have still been very fresh at a place like this. I mean, if these were taken the exact year 1870, it hadn't even been 10 years since the time it was used as a hospital, only 5 years after the Civil War eventually came to an end. But also the Peyton Randolph House was not the only building that was used, as an infirmary. Nearly 30 other buildings were used as hospitals during this time. Unfortunately, however, that wasn't the end of the fatal tragedies. One among the deaths, a former Confederate soldier fell ill and died in the home after succumbing to illness while attending the College of William and Mary. Later, two men also lost their lives after getting into a fight over a heated argument while visiting the property where they shot and killed each other. Hang on one second here. Jeez. So now moving forward to the 20th century, there wasn't as it's interesting. I didn't find as much as we get to the early 1900s and beyond. It was mostly from the 17 and 1800s, but I was able to find some information involving its history in the 20th century. But the home was purchased then by the Wilson Ball family in the early 1920s after having rented it since 1919. The land was divided into several smaller lots with two different buildings. Both buildings had basements, which, according to the Colonial Williamsburg report, both buildings had basements, destroying any archaeological evidence of previous structures or features. Colonial Williamsburg purchased one of the main structures from Mrs. Ball in 1938 and completed their purchase of the rest of the original property in the 1960s. And both of the 1920s era homes were removed in the early 1970s. Colonial Williamsburg primary restoration began in October 1939 and was completed in April 1940. The original east wing, in poor condition as this photo shows, was torn down and a reconstruction built. The area was determined to contain at least 2 Native American Indian burial sites and pottery. These graves were disturbed during the construction of the tunnel for the Colonial National Parkway in 1941. More restoration of the center main section was undertaken in June 1967 and was finished 12 months later. The center and west portions of the house opened for exhibition on July 1st, 1968, while the east wing remained unoccupied. In 1970, the house was declared a National Historic Landmark for its well-preserved early 18th century architecture and for its association with prominent Randolph family. I often wonder if there's still just before we get to the next one, I often wonder if there is still if there are any, because with the Randolph family being such successful, I mean, rather, oh, wait a minute, no, you know what? I was originally gonna say if there are any modern day descendants of them, but I forgot. Peyton and his wife really had no children for the most part, so if they didn't have kids, most likely there are probably no living descendants of them personally, maybe by the other siblings, but not by Peyton himself. One second. So, as far as the Peyton Randolph house today, the house now serves as a historical museum, both for historical and ghost tours, as it is one of the oldest surviving buildings from colonial Virginia, and the structures on the registry of U.S. National Historic Landmarks. And once again, I definitely would like to give credit to Lauren, who also took this picture while she was out visiting and investigating. So another great shot there, Lauren. And I actually like this photo in particular right before we get to the ghost stories. I mean, the paranormal side of it, because it almost kind of acts with that cloudy, overcast look to it. It provides almost not only just an eerie atmosphere, but almost more like an eerie precursor to what I'm about to present next. So let me just go back to the comments very quickly before we get to the other side of Randolph. So let's see. Yeah, Sam, you're absolutely right. People were mean to others then. Not much has changed yet. You're damn right, unfortunately. Okay, let's see. Well, I bet they hated spelling that in school. I'm betting Brett's referring to one the names. Lafayette is a huge name here in Virginia. I'm not surprised. I'm definitely not surprised. Kate, great to see you here. Okay, let's see. Show the photos of what happens when it. I'm just again way ahead of you, Lauren. I'm actually just about to get to them, so bear with me for just another second here. All right, we're caught up. So, well, actually, in about a minute or so, because I want to get through I'd like to present the stories first, right before we get to the photographs. But unmistakably, the notoriously haunted Peyton Randolph House boasts many titles, including the most haunted house in the U.S., the most original house in colonial Williamsburg, the most haunted place in Williamsburg, and the most haunted house on the East Coast. Every month, ghosts on the ghost tour pass out or have medical issues in front of this house. So it's quite obvious this place has a lot of very negative energy. This has happened, believe it or not, in 4 times. Get it, 4 times in 1 month before, with different tour guides and all in front of the Peyton Randolph house. This place is no joke. I absolutely agree with that. I mean, from what I've read about the activity of this place, after what I heard from Lauren, I mean, and up until about a month or so ago, I've never even heard of this place, and I probably wouldn't not think too much of it, other than maybe just being a historical location. But from what I've read, yeah, it's I mean, this slideshow basically speaks for itself and for Lauren. I mean, it's and even I haven't been there, and I can already tell you it's not a joke at all whatsoever. So obviously, the Randolph House is featured on every ghost tour in Williamsburg and boasts title of most infamous structure next to the public gaol and the Wright House as the most haunted houses in Williamsburg. Legend has it that all residents who lived and died in the Peyton Randolph house still occupy the dwelling. Since its construction in 1715, about 30 people have died in the house, from children to adults. So, kind of like as a recap, due to freak accidents, murders, war, to mysterious natural illnesses. Voices are heard inside. Objects move on their own. People have felt hands touch them or even push them, sometimes down a flight of stairs. And visitors, including, believe it or not, the famous French general of the American Revolution, Marquis de Lafayette, believed that something haunted the Peyton Randolph house. He was one of many to have an encounter in this house. During his stay there, he claims that he heard strange noises coming from the hallways. He also reported there was a bone-chilling instance where an ice-cold hand had gripped his shoulder and heard strange voices echoing throughout the halls. In 1824, Lafayette returned to Williamsburg, where he had spent some time during the Revolutionary War. During his tour through the U.S., he stayed at the Peyton Randolph House in Williamsburg. He wrote, "I considered myself fortunate to lodge in the home of a great man, Peyton Randolph. Upon my arrival, as I entered through the foyer, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It nudged me as if intending to keep me from entering. I quickly turned, but found no one there. The nights were not restful, as the sounds of voices kept me awake for most of my stay." See, that's quite interesting for such a location like this. Even when this house was still being used and occupied as a normal house for those who actually lived there and for those who visited and stayed the night. You have to remember this was almost 200 years ago, and even 200 years back then, they even back then they were already experiencing certain types of supernatural activity in this house. So even during its heydays, or its days as an actual house, they people, someone like Lafayette, people were already having experiences there. So that's quite remarkable, and that doesn't end there. Now moving over 100 years later, when the building served as a lodging house recently as the late 1960s. Guests would have rushed out in the middle of the night, claiming to have been physically and violently shook, their limbs tugged on, or to have seen apparitions over their bed. An interview from the book by Jackie Bernhard, The Hauntings of Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown, recounts one guest's experience. I was resting comfortable when awakened by the peculiar feeling that someone was tugging on my arm. Naturally, excuse me, naturally, I assumed I was dreaming, so I rolled over and went back to sleep. A short while later, I was being shaken violently. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I could see that I was completely alone. I darted out of bed and ran as fast as I could. I didn't even go back to collect the things I'd left behind. Today, guests who visit the Peyton Randolph house will occasionally spot a glowing apparition of a man dressed in 18th century clothing. Others hear the mysterious sound of boots stomping throughout the house. Visitors have also witnessed strange movements from the second floor window. Perhaps the little girl continues to play inside the house. In addition, in addition to also more entities that inhabit this house, a frantic elderly woman is said to haunt the house. Known as the Shrew, she warns visitors of impending disaster. Many locals, however, consider the house to be inhabited. I don't know if you know about this, Lauren, but many locals consider the house to be inhabited by a more sinister, violent specter as well. Perhaps, from what I've heard, is said to be the most feared entity of all these entities that inhabit the Peyton Randolph house. In fact, tour guides often warn groups not to go anywhere near the home at night, lest they incur the wrath of this violent phantom. A few years ago, original Ghosts of Williamsburg candlelit tour guide Heidi Hartriger and her colleagues reported the glass in their lanterns was cracking in front of the house. On one other occasion, a fifth grader on a tour took pictures that seemingly revealed the image of a woman with a large black cat. I asked around, and conventional wisdom was that it was Mrs. Peachy, Hartriger said. She was known for her big black cat. Rumor has it that she had many children, in addition to the one who died and an adopted one who died. When she misses her kids, she comes out to be with children. But that's not what this other entity is, and we're about to get right to it. And from what I remember hearing, from what we're going to be getting, from what I remember reading, I'm not going to lie, it actually gave me chills. But of course, the fifth grader is not the only one who's taken unusual things, has captured unusual things on photographs. Many guests have taken photographs of unexplainable figures, orbs, and myths at the Peyton Randolph house. One night, for example, now this is where things get kind of scary. One night, for example, a security guard heard sounds of children after he locked up, which could have been the ghosts of the Peachy children. Sally and Mary T.G. Peachy owned the home after the Randolphs. People have also reported hearing the heavy boots of the spirit of the Civil War soldier, or of a Civil War soldier who died of tuberculosis, treading throughout the house. Some have also reported his pale figure appear in the middle of the night. Now this is what I wanted to get to. This is where it gets pretty unsettling. One of the more popular and recent stories is that of a Colonial Williamsburg security guard who became trapped in the basement of the house after entering through the shutter doors behind the house. As he was making his exit, he heard a large and terrifying growl and felt something grab his legs as if holding his feet firmly down. He was stopped in his tracks and unable to move his legs. Then suddenly, the shutter doors slammed shut and his flashlight turned off. He quickly used his radio to call for help. When his lieutenant finally came and pried open the cellar doors, he was released from whatever force was holding him. I think he did give a little detail of, as you could very well imagine, he was absolutely frightened to death, especially by hearing this growl. I mean, trapped in this dark basement. And he said he really didn't know whatever it was. I mean, you have to think, he was hearing this horrific growl. Something was holding him down. Obviously, he had no idea who or what was in the basement. I mean, it was obvious something was in the basement with him, and he had no idea who or what it was, and that was a problem. He also added he didn't know that whatever was downstairs was either gonna really gonna hurt him, or even going as far as gonna kill him. But of course, like anyone, he was not gonna stick around to find out. So that's when he started using his radio for help. Now, while some say he quit the next day, in fact, it turned out the security guard left 3 months later for a higher paying job. Others now have heard the sounds of knocking coming from inside the house, furniture moving on its own, or the sounds of children playing inside. The second floor of the house, you might know this, Lauren, is that it's regarded as the most haunted, as many report feeling something malicious pushing them, usually down the stairs. A woman is also occasionally heard singing in the backyard by security, as if she stands right in front of them, but they find no one, of course. Another event tells of an alarm that went off at the east wing of the house. The house attached to the right side of the Randolph house, which used to be occupied by two women until they passed away. Security was unable to obtain a key to the property, so they found a way in through one of the windows to the inside. No evidence of fire or smoke was present, however. Upon entering, though, they did find something very unusual. A fire extinguisher was resting in the middle of the floor, its contents completely emptied around it, in what looked like a controlled circular pattern. Security then decided that the house had been infiltrated, so they called on more support, surrounded and searched the house for intruders. Strangely, the fire retardant material did not seep under the door and enter into the other section of the main house, as if it was stopped by an invisible boundary. More uncanny was that the extinguisher was completely empty and the pin had been removed, but never found. However, the most startling discovery was what they found when they lifted the extinguisher. There was absolutely nothing. No extinguisher discharge below the extinguisher. It was it's kind of weird. It's kind of repeating some of the information again, but again, I'll fix it up and I'll have it more organized next time. But it was resting in the middle of the room as if it had been placed from the wall on the floor with a discharge nozzle facing downward and had sprayed around the room in an odd pattern while remaining in perfect position. No residue was found underneath the extinguisher nor on its bottom. No intruders had been found, nor any signs of break-in. Furthermore, even if someone was involved, how could they achieve and control such an unusual spray pattern in the room? We're just about to get right down to the last slide that contains information, but some people, obviously, I know some of you guys are wondering, how does a place like this see so much tragedy and so much of this type of activity? And there were really only two different explanations. So this last slide is going to be relatively short, but the typical explanation has been that the Randolph house was cursed by Betty Randolph's slave, Eve, who in 1782 cursed the house after being forcibly taken away and split from her son when she was sold to different owners as punishment for running away with the British the previous year. The second explanation is that the house's activities are caused by Betty Randolph's cruel behavior towards her slaves, much of which is a mystery, possibly akin, which is not surprisingly, to New Orleans, Louisiana's LaLaurie Mansion. So this third and final segment of the slides, this is where we start. This is where we start looking at the photographs. So let me just get right to the comments once again. Okay, so yep, here. See, Lauren's obviously speaking. She told me both times she's been there, had a massive headache both times. She could feel so many emotions echoing from that house. I believe it. Yeah, it's definitely creepy getting tugged on in your sleep. That makes most want to go, telling them not to. You're kind of right on that. Your EMF detector kept going into the red. Wow. There is a saying that one of the ladies. Yeah, that's exactly what I was just bringing out. That the slave Eve. She's the one that put the curse on the Randolph house. Oh wow, Ed, I'm glad you're definitely enjoying it. It's absolutely my pleasure. I mean, it's, as you can see, it's a lot of work putting this stuff together, especially when it's regards to a lot of these other locations, especially for a state like Virginia. But in the end, it's totally worth putting it together. Very close to the old Eastern State Asylum. I'm gonna have to look at that one, Ed. I mean, I've heard of Eastern State Penitentiary in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I don't know. I guess there's an Eastern State Asylum in Virginia, but either way, it's definitely my pleasure. Now, let's get right back. I'm all caught up with the comments. I only got a couple minutes left, but fortunately, I should have enough to finish up the rest of the show. Now, here's where I'm going to present the pictures. In fact, some of these were actually taken by Lauren herself. What I'm actually going to do just before I do show, Lauren, I thought I'd do this just before I show you your pictures. I don't know if you've seen, there's been other pictures that have been taken at the Peyton Randolph house over the years of supposed a lot of these spirit activity. And I thought it would be appropriate if I showed you these pictures so you know that there's obviously been a lot of photographs taken of unusual activity. So we're going to start off with these pictures here. Now, it's very likely that these photos, what you're seeing, may most likely just be smoke. These were taken well over a couple years ago, but the people who took these photos, they said that they had no idea what was in front of the camera at that time. These photos I'm a little bit skeptical of because it could most likely just be insects or even rain. But again, the photographers that took these pictures, they were pretty sincere that this was not rain or any type of insects flying around. So, of course, obviously, as you can see, these were taken at night, but regardless, they're pretty interesting photographs. So I'll just leave them up for just a few seconds just before we get to the next one because I got a bunch of them. I found a lot of them throughout the internet. Okay, so a few seconds have passed. Moving forward. Oops, I'm sorry, went a little bit too fast there. Now this, I don't know if you guys can see, but from what I remember, you can kind of see someone like that of an apparition of some sort standing in the wind. I think this might be of the second floor. And then this photo here, I know it's a little bit blurry. This was taken, I think, about almost 10 years ago. Again, I know it's a little bit, or pixelated, I should say, not blurry. But the photographer who took this one, you can kind of see, I wish there was a way I can clear it up, what looks like appears to be a man's face. If you guys can see it pretty carefully. I mean, from my side, you can clearly see what looks like two eyes, a nose. I believe that's probably the mouth right there. You got the chin here. And there might be a little bit of hair or it could be a shadow of some sort, but for the most part, all you can see obviously is just a face right here. So that's a really interesting picture. Both of them are. So okay, it's been a couple seconds, so let's move on to the next one. Now this photo, what I remember hearing about this, which I just found out, there's nothing actually that was captured in this photograph, but apparently the investigators that were there this night, I believe the same night, they said they saw the curtain moving and they actually tried taking pictures with their phones. However, upon trying to take a photo, their phones literally froze. So they decided to take a picture to show the evidence that their phones weren't working after trying to take a picture of this curtain that was moving. Now here you can kind of see a little bit of it's a little bit far away because you can see it's quite a distance from the Randolph house. So you can kind of see there's somewhat of a light or a glow, I believe, of I think they said this was supposed to be like a fiery or glowing figure standing in the window. And from what they said, there was nobody in the house and there were no lights on at the time this photo was taken. And of course, since it was pretty far away, there's no way that could have been a reflection. So, and then here we got another that seems to show what looks like, again, another figure standing in the window. So, and believe me, not all these pictures I have in this presentation, not all these occurred at night. I do have a couple photos that did of unusual activity that did occur during the day as well. So, of course, now I know a few seconds have passed, so let's move on because I like to try to get Lawrence pictures as quickly as possible. This photo right here was taken again on that same night during a tour. And obviously, it's an interesting one where they have the tour guide probably talking about either the history or the ghost stories involving the Payne Randolph house, and something is literally standing right in the window to the right. Or wait, is that the same? I don't know if that is the same building, actually. It might be, but if it's not, it's still an interesting photo. Then, of course, you got your typical orbs. Again, most likely these are probably just, again, it could just be rain, but it's really hard to say, though. It's still quite an eerie. They're still both quite eerie photos to begin with, considering it's interesting considering how it was taken at night, and it just I don't know about anyone else, but seeing the Payne Randolph house at nighttime, it seems like it's beautiful during the day, but at night it seems to have a much more menacing, intimidating look to it. Here we are with another photo, which I believe was actually an apparition of a little girl that was taken again up on the second photo. It actually has a very creepy look to it, considering the branches of the tree nearby. Here's a zoomed in version of the picture where you can get a real better view of what's standing in the window. And this picture, from what I'm probably assuming, again, is probably that of a little girl. I would not be surprised if this could be one of the Peachy children that died in the house. This one here, we got another where it has like a glow in the house itself. I think they said this was either supposed to be a figure, something was glowing in the Payne Randolph house once again when this photo was taken. So I have no idea what it is. It's obviously some kind of light source, but that's still a very, again, another interesting photo to kind of give analysis. I mean, to really have some type of analysis on. Okay, moving forward. Now see here we got some of the daylight pictures. I think this is the oh wait a minute. Is this oh wait, no, it's the oh wait a minute. Okay, you know what? This last picture I think was taken right after the other one. I'm gonna have to switch them up. But here we got some of the photos here that are here during the day. Supposedly this person said that this was missed, but I'm kind of skeptical on this. To me, this looks more like raindrops may have gotten the lens of the camera. And here in this photo, you could see, I believe they said it was on the second. No, I'm sorry. Right here by the triangle, Again, I wish there was a way I could zoom in, but you can kind of see somewhat of a face peering out of the window right here. So, and this photo here, although I just mentioned how there's like kind of a glow, this one actually is a little bit more detailed. It actually does look like that there's a glowing figure standing in the window. You can kind of see what it looks like, almost kind of looks like that of a torso right here. I think you can kind of see the side of a head. It almost looks female, in my opinion. It almost just appears more or less like you can only just see the left side of it, of whatever it is that's standing in the window. Okay, now these photos, Lauren, this is where things should get really exciting for you. Now, here are Lauren's pictures that she took over a month ago during her investigation. Now, I know some people will probably say that, well, it's just dust or whatnot. That's kind of filling up. It's an old building. But from what Lauren had said, and Lauren, if you like, if you want to give details for your pictures in the chat, go right ahead. But she told me there was no dust that was flying around. It was pretty clean inside the building, if I'm correct, Lauren. Let me go back to the chat just so that way so I can get confirmation from her. Nothing worse to get tugged in bed and no one is there. Yeah. Okay, whenever you take a photo of the house at night, they always come out like that. Yeah, I believe it. Oh, yikes. Yeah, thanks, Kate. Really appreciate that. I didn't know that we were going to be under a tornado threat for our area. I mean, we haven't gotten anything over here, but yeah, definitely stay safe. Let me know when if you guys are okay. All right, so let me go back. I'm sure. I know Lawrence. I think she's probably typing. That's why I'm not in a rush or anything like that. I'm sure she's typing right now, giving the details of these pictures. So while we're going through this, and I really actually got to wrap this up because I know another show is right after me. So we'll share a few more of the photos here that were taken by Lauren. These again are primary examples. Once again, night shots of the exterior of the Peyton Randolph house, and you can see once again a type of mist appearing on both sides in both photos. Now, obviously, I could already rule out it's definitely not breath showing up because this was just a month ago, and understandably, this was at a time when it was warm. So someone's breath, obviously, we could easily rule out. And considering a place like Colonial Williamsburg for such historic locations, obviously, they would definitely be absolutely no smoking areas. So I'm pretty sure that's not cigarette smoke either. So, yeah, Lauren's definitely right about, they definitely do come out a lot at night, but that doesn't mean entirely that they can also come out during the day. I mean, you have to remember when it comes to spirits, they have no particular time of wanting to come out. They can come out and do whenever they can come out whenever they want to. Here we are with just a few more. As you can see more of that unusual mist appearing. This one's probably my favorite because, as you can see, it seems like it starts because I should have put these. I should have switched these because it's like first you see just a little bit of it, then you see more of it developing, and it starts becoming more mistier, and then almost entirely it becomes almost well over half of the photograph. It becomes like very misty. Oh, I forgot to add Hayden, but this was the last picture that she took. Oh wait, was that? Oh wait a second. I think I might have. Hang on one second. I must have already you know what? I accidentally copied one of the pictures. This picture here is the same as this one. So I think that's pretty much I think that might be it. Let me just go back one final time. Oh yes. Here she is. These are taken from the cells that Black and Bread's men were kept. This was not. Oh, it was not on the property. Okay. She took each photos one right off. Yeah, glad you enjoyed it, Sam. Took each. Okay, he took each photos and okay, took each of the photos within seconds of each other. Okay. Yeah, you're definitely. Yeah, they definitely have no concept of time. All right. Let's see. Going back. Oh shoot, I gotta end this. Okay, so we only got just another minute here, guys, because I gotta end this soon. I just realized that I did have a video that I could. I wish I had a little bit more time because this would have been an interesting way to end the presentation, because this is actually the very last slide. But I did manage to find an investigation video of the Peyton Randolph house. Unfortunately, it is probably going to have to wait till next week, so I do apologize that we didn't have enough. That I just don't. That I have to end things early. So, but as usual, we'll just watch the video for next week. So it's obviously we're not in a major hurry, and just remember, for the most part, we got through the entirety of the slideshow. Let's see, I can still show them. Oh, she's talking about the. You're talking about the ones that were in the cells, right? If I'm correct, Lauren. Love abandoned buildings, dark halls, and corners, and looking for a scary thrill. Does that sound normal? Hell no. Makes us individuals. I'm glad you enjoyed it, Brad. Thank you. Okay, yeah. So I hear there's okay. That's it's exactly what I was. That's what I. It's been a long day today. Okay, great, Lauren. Thanks for doing it. You know what? Thank you, Lauren, for giving requesting this location, because I'm pretty sure, without you telling me about it, I would have never even known about this place. So I really, really appreciate it. So thank you. At least I didn't lose power. So good evening. I learned a lot. Well, of course, Sam. I'll be back, of course, next week. So there's plenty of more presentations where that's coming from. But like I said, we'll watch the investigation video next week. But like I said, Lauren, thank you so much for requesting this location. I definitely had a great time. If you ever go back, or if anyone else is given the chance, some people may think this might be the only time I may show it. Not exactly. I might show this again at a future time. Lauren, next time if you're going, I mean, maybe not so soon, but whenever at a much later time. Plus, during that time, I'm able to make some corrections, so that way it looks a lot better next time, more organized and everything put together. But for the most part, it's pretty good. So, anyways, as I always say right before the end of the show, I really appreciate everybody's support. I'm glad you guys enjoyed the show. Like I said, I don't just do this for myself. I do it for you guys. And, seriously. And like I said, for Lauren, I really can't thank her enough. So this was great. So for next week of Nick Files, we'll probably go back to, well, actually, no. I was originally going to say that we were going to go back to looking at more haunted and historical locations throughout Mansfield, Ohio. However, that will actually be, I'm going to have to push that back a week ahead, because we have what's called the Paranormal Giving Tree coming up. Now, originally, we were going to have 4 locations, 2 in New York, 1 in Mississippi, and 1 also in Texas. Unfortunately, unfortunately, the locations in Mississippi and Texas have kind of dropped out. So I'm just going to be focusing on 2 locations instead, one of which, since Tom's here, one of which him and I have been to, which is the Wildwood Sanitarium in Salamanca, New York. And the other is, obviously, we've never been to this place, but it was called the, oh man, if Jeremy was on right now, he'd be able to help me out with this. So, we haven't really got much of the storms, Tom's, not in our area at least. So yeah, it's very interesting. But either way, it's to kind of promote for the Paranormal Giving Tree. So we'll be talking about these two locations next week. And yes, Lauren, eventually, because again, I got a full schedule, but yes, I do have a few of the other locations throughout the state of Virginia, as well as of some areas in Williamsburg. So a lot of stuff coming up over the next couple weeks. So it's going to be great. And always, of course, you guys got it too. No, Tom, it's not the Hinsdale house. Actually, I talked to Jeremy actually about it. He said he spoke to Daniel Clace about it, believe it or not, last year. And I think they were going to take part in it last year, but unfortunately they were unable to. So it's not Hinsdale, it's a different location in New York. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. Oglays Village. I've never heard of that one before. That's probably another one, new one for me. Eventually when I just so you guys know, eventually, not anytime soon, but very soon, probably within a couple months, I will probably be taking a hiatus from doing this because you have to remember this is a lot of work putting in. So, it's a lot of work putting these things together, and at times I definitely do need a break. But don't worry, I still have plenty. I've got plenty of slideshows to cover for the next several weeks to a couple months. My estimate when I go on hiatus will probably be sometime in either early to mid-November. So it's not coming to a close anytime soon. There, of course, obviously, there are going to be some weeks where I may not be able to do a show, but I'll still be here for a couple more months throughout the rest of the summer and into the fall. So, hey, Lois, I'm actually just about to end this. So, oh my God, and she used my old-fashioned name. Of course, that's another story. I'll have to talk about that on a different show some other time. My original name, Nikki. All right, everyone. Again, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. You guys are awesome, and again, really appreciate the views, the support, and just enjoying the show. So I know I'll see some of you guys tomorrow afternoon to the Graven back. It'll just be me and Grizzly Chris since Lois, since she's here, she's on holiday. So he and I will take over. We're probably going to be talking this time for sure about the Hinsdale, about the Hillside Strangler. So, and then tomorrow night for Supernatural Talk, I think it's just going to be open mic night. And as far as the Frighteners on Friday, I'm not sure what we're going to be talking about, Lois. I'm sure you and I will be talking about that as soon as I get off here. So, yeah, in addition to my show, a lot of great stuff coming. I'll see some of you guys tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow night. But if you guys want to wait for the next episode of Nick Files, I will see you guys next week. You guys all have a great night. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Yeah, I said it the first time. All right. Take it easy, everyone. Have a great night.